Councillor Van Elfen. All in favor? Thank you. So on to business items. The first one, 5.1, is the COVID-19 operational update from our CAO.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we've got a couple of updates for council and the community. The first one would be around our parks and some of the reopening plans we've announced yesterday. I've got Fire Chief Noble on the list as well to be able to give council an update on flooding risk and some of the weather that's going to be passing through. Hopefully not, but maybe passing through the valley in the next couple of days. I'll provide an update on Mountain View Growers. We've had a couple of questions around the vegetated buffer and the removal of that, and then agricultural domestic temporary farm workers relative to COVID-19 and some of the initiatives that we're looking at moving forward. So first, regarding the rollout of our park reopening plans. On June 1st, we'll be reopening some of our public spaces and facilities for public use, and that will include our municipal playgrounds at Peach Orchard Beach Park, Powell Beach, Kin Park, Dale Meadows, Julia Street Park, and Memorial Park. It'll also include Dale Meadows basketball hoops and Peach Orchard beach volleyball. So we're again continuing on with the slow reopening of our outdoor recreation facilities for the community to take advantage of and use. Is great to see. So our staff are in the process of moving those forward. Just again, reminder, we've got signage on display outlining the requirements, but just reminding the community and visitors that these outdoors spaces are to be used with caution, keeping physical distancing between each other, staying home if they're sick, washing and sanitizing their hands regularly. So those protocols are obviously important to remain in place as we begin the reopening plans. We're obviously reduced some of our district staff over the last couple of months as well as a cost-saving measure and in recognition of some of the financial constraints. Some of the financial constraints that we're under as a district. So we certainly appreciate the community's understanding with a little bit of reduced maintenance to some of our parks and recreation facilities throughout the community. But as we reopen parks, though, you'll see some of those maintenance requirements certainly begin to enhance. The focus, as I've said, is on our outdoor spaces and programming, and our recreation supervisor or recreation manager and team are working with BC Parks and Recreation Association and all of our various sporting associations around new policies and procedures that need to be put in place as we look at more of our active spaces being put in place and more of the organized sport facilities and user groups coming back in action. So no timeline yet on those, but we'll be working with those associations over the coming weeks and keeping the community informed as we learn more. So that's the park space and outdoor recreation update. Is there any questions on that?
Before we go to questions, I just want to let any public that might be viewing know that Councillor Carlson has joined us by phone. Councillor Holmes, followed by Councillor Trainer.
Yeah, and just to confirm, the campground is reopening the 1st of June?
Yes, June 1st, that is correct. The campground will be open. They've taken bookings and they are fairly well booked from the sounds of things. And
is would you know if the campground is restricted to BC residents only, or can anybody book?
Anyone can book there. The restriction, I believe, on the provincial is related to provincial campgrounds, not private campgrounds.
Councillor Trainer?
Anthony, you might have already mentioned this, but will staff be sanitizing the playgrounds at all? And if so, is that going to be something that they're going to be doing regularly, or is that the onus more on the people who use it to make sure they're taking all the precautions?
Yeah, so the onus is certainly on the users of those playgrounds to make sure they're washing their hands and using the facilities that we have in the appropriate manner.
Okay, so before they open, before they open, will they be sanitized?
I believe so. I can follow up with our works crew and see what those protocols are in place. There are
Okay. I'm just interested to know.
for sure. We'll be able to update you on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson, or Trainer. Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To our CAO, with the opening of the parks for June 1, Anthony, are you considering bringing back any of the staff, the temporary layoff staff that we had done, or are we still going with our mandate that we're still looking at August 31?
Yeah, so we've got one additional staff member that's coming back for the June 1st opening. So that's an additional maintenance worker that will be coming back to assist with that reopening. And as we're obviously keeping discussion with our works crews as demand comes for sporting fields, for example, then you really start to see the increased need for maintenance to come back. So we're gonna keep an eye on that, but again, cognizant of the financial implications and working with our finance director on keeping as up to date as we can on the revenue that's coming in. So, but trying to balance that, and that's where some of the other facility openings certainly come into play as well around our financial ability to do that. So we've got a service to provide based on the need of the community. We obviously don't receive additional revenue for the parks and recreation, or I guess the general public use. So certainly something that we're going to keep an eye on. We have to keep an eye on over the coming months.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Other questions before we go on to further updates from our fire chief? All right.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Boots. So I'll hand you over to Glenn just to provide a bit of an update. We've been, or Glenn's been in contact with a range of different ministries around flooding risk, the lake level, and also the weather warning that's come through for this weekend. So Glenn, do you want to provide a brief update on where things are at and what we're doing?
Okay, Chris can jump in too. I believe he's probably on some of the details on what his crew are doing. Okanagan Lake looks like this morning we're just 2 centimeters below full pool. Guidance yesterday from Sean Reimer and Mike Noseworthy with Flynn Road was we're likely to go to 10 to 15 centimeters above full pool. That's not taking into account what may happen this weekend with the potential for some very heavy rains. The projection for tomorrow is a temperature up to 35 degrees, which is going to significantly impact the Mission Creek snowpack, which is the biggest contributor to Okanagan Lake. And then if we get rain on top of that, look in the crystal ball because nobody really knows what that could do. So worst case scenario, we're Martin's crews have been starting to put sand out along the lake shore. I believe they did that yesterday and maybe the day before. People are starting to come to the hall to pick up empty bags, sandbags. We haven't seen a rush there yet. Speaking with Martin yesterday, if we get to the 15 centimeters above full pool, it's not likely to be much of an impact on any of our infrastructure. And that would still be less than what we saw in 2018. Again, Sean Reimer with Flynn Road yesterday said it was, over the past many years, 15 centimeters above full pool would not be that significant. It's just people tend to now have since 17, people are more anxious and worried about the level of the lake. So it's not all doom and gloom, but the kind of the stance everybody in the region is taking is we'll see Monday. And it's all dependent on what this weather system is going to do. So one good note on Eneas Creek, it's down quite a bit again today. I don't know, Councillor Van Alpen has a pretty good eye on that one as well. But from where I monitor it, it was down about an inch today. So that's good. We should be able to withstand a flush through there, I think, without too much grief. But all eyes will be on Okanagan Lake now.
Great. Thanks, Glenn. And so Chris is, we're going to send some communication out today around the sand availabilities along Garnet Valley, Lakeshore, and Lower Town area and Trout Creek. So there's about 10 or 12 different locations where sand is being located by our works crews right now. So should anyone in the community need sandbagging, obviously bags are available at the fire hall, and there's those 10 or 11 locations throughout the community where our works crew are locating sand. So we'll get that information out to the community later this morning.
Councillor Van Elfen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just, pleading with the public, the sand that's dropped off in like around Garnet Valley and areas like that is for sandbagging, not filling potholes in your driveway. So please leave the sand there for the people that really need it to sandbag, because, if we have a catastrophe, it's nice to have the availability. Thank you.
Any other questions on what we've heard from our fire chief? Anthony, back to you.
Okay, thank you. So just a quick update on Mountain View growers. We've had a couple of complaints from some residents that live along Julia Street, where the rear of their property butts up against Mountain View growers. There was a landscape buffer that was, I think, a row of cedars that was located along there that was quite mature and recently removed. One of the questions we had around what's the ability for that to be replanted. Within our agricultural plan, there's some recommendations around the need for buffers to be in place between agricultural land and residential and any interface properties. However, there's no requirements in our zoning bylaw or no requirements in place on this specific property to have that landscape buffer in place. So our ability to enforce that is not there. We're obviously in contact with the business owners, and their advice to us was that there will be replanting a buffer of some sort, but there's no specific timeline on that. So just wanted to provide an update for council. I know there's been a few questions from the residents there, and I'm happy to have the residents direct those questions to staff as well, so we can give them an update if that's needed as well. So we're going to keep in communication with Mountain View growers as they move forward, but that's an update on that issue. I know it's come up over the last few days.
Anthony, if I could ask, I realize that it can't be grandfathered in, but is this something that could be part of our bylaw discussion in the future? Or maybe it's part of the good neighbor bylaw referring to the interface between residential and agricultural properties. It's something that I would like to have brought forward to council for further discussion.
Certainly. So that yeah, we could, I think the zoning bylaw, we have a table in our zoning bylaw that talks about the type of buffer between residential properties and commercial properties, industrial and residential properties. It exempts agricultural properties from those buffer requirements in our zoning bylaw in the landscaping section. So that would need to be changed. We'd need to work with the potentially the agricultural committee, for example, on what that buffer could look like, and then the ability for us to impose landscaping requirements on agricultural land is also something that we'd have to look at as well. So, but certainly something that staff would have the ability to investigate if we had that direction from council.
Good, thank you. Any other questions on this particular matter? Okay.
Okay, and then last one, the agricultural domestic temporary farm workers. So we've been working with Bryn White, who's a contractor for the Ministry of Agriculture, who's been looking at the potential for locating sites for farm workers, that domestic farm workers that we're expecting to turn up in the community over the next little while. So we've been looking at a few different district sites. We had a good discussion with our agricultural committee this morning around the potential for off-farm housing locations or camp locations, but also the ability for on-farm locations as well. So as opposed to a larger camp, where some of the health restrictions may be a little difficult to apply. The discussion at the Ag Committee this morning was around, can we look at working with the Ministry of Agriculture around relaxing some of the ALC requirements around farm workers and locating them in camps on agricultural land. So we've got another phone call this morning with the Ministry of Agriculture and their Assistant Deputy Minister and staff with all the communities in the South Okanagan. So we'll be looking at bringing forward some ideas there for the Ministry of Ag to look at putting in place. And from our understanding, the ministry are looking at potential funding like they have down at the regional district's campground down in Oliver over the last little while. So it's going to be an ongoing discussion, but the urgency is certainly increasing given the I guess pending arrival of our domestic temporary farm workers into the South Okanagan, and Summerland's obviously no different there. So we'll keep council updated on that issue and keep working with Bryn White and the ministry to bring some solutions forward. If there's any municipal sites that are identified for the location of temporary farm workers, then we'll obviously bring them back to council before any decisions get made.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. The sense I get from this is, I mean, it's obviously an issue that needs to be dealt with, but I worry a bit that it's one other thing that's going to be downloaded onto local government, and without the resources to follow. And I think that's something we need to keep an eye on and keep in the back of our minds, because I know that, you know, we're looking for a short-term solution right now to COVID, but really it's a long-term solution that's required too. And if we're driving this bus without any resources, I can't really see how that's going to work.
Yeah, no, through the chair, Madam Mayor, that's a great point. And I think there's obviously a longer term discussion that this, I think like a lot of issues through that we've been dealing with over the last little while, we're being forced to deal with some issues that are part of a longer term discussion in a more immediate fashion. So it definitely deserves a longer investment in some policy on how to deal with this issue.
If I could just ask Anthony, in our discussions that we've had with Bryn, there was an indication that there is an application to Treasury for financial help.
Yeah.
With this is that off the table now?
No, that's still available, and I think they should be hearing later on today around what funding may be available as well. So but that is just to deal with the short-term issue.
Okay. Yes, I realize that. Councillor Traynor, followed by Councillor Bark.
Are we talking about workers that come specifically to Summerland, or is this more a regional, like I know it's a regional issue, but like is Bryn dealing with each community individually, or how is this working exactly?
Yes, so she's dealing with each community individually, but we're obviously meeting as a group as we try and figure out what the right regional approach is. But there will likely need to be some individuals, community-based solutions and sites potentially in each community.
Thank you, Councillor Traynor. Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, Councillor Holmes raises a very good point here. Considering that farmland pays little to no municipal taxes, it isn't really fair that we have to spend municipal resources dealing with the problem of labor for farms. It's just not, part of the relationship. So hopefully this funding that Bryn is referring to, and it should maybe cover some of our resources too that have to be spent on this issue.
That would be great.
That's the intention, Councillor Barkwell, at least as Anthony was saying, in the short term. Any other questions on Domestic farm workers. Councillor Carlson, did you have anything to add?
I'm actually about to have to leave the call. I have an orchard inspection audit happening in a few minutes. But I just want to add that I don't think that the people are going to be coming from Quebec en masse the same way they normally do. And I don't think that everybody who comes to the Okanagan is going to need a place to camp, because a lot of them have a safe place on an orchard if they come here with a job. So we need to remember the people who will be coming to use a facility like this are people generally who don't have a job. They may not, just because they come here doesn't mean that they're a fruit picker. So it's not just on the farmers would be my one comment to Councillor Barkwell. There's a lot of other people who would then use a facility. There's a lot of other people who use Loose Bay as a place to live for the summer instead of just as a place to be when they're working in an orchard. So I think we need to take caution in that, but we also, I think that it's very difficult to get out of Quebec right now unless you have a job and you have proof that you're going to a real job. So hopefully some of the farmers who don't have proper facilities can start to take responsibility and build some proper facilities for their employees. The province has already put in place a lot of rules for those on-site camps, and so they will be enforcing those rules. But it has also meant that some people don't want to have workers stay on their farms anymore. So maybe there is that other side of it, and I don't know how we solve that problem. So I'm grateful to the province for working on it, and I hope we can come up with some sort of solution that keeps everybody safe and healthy.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. We'll talk to you later. Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, that was the kind of the big issue that came up this morning in the Ag Committee is what is the demand, and we don't really know. And until we know what the demand is for a camp like this, it's hard to plan to put something in place. So that was kind of the general consensus, I think. I don't know if Anthony, if you agree or.
Yeah, no, for sure. That was a point that we're trying to see if we can find through our agricultural contact lists to see if we can send I guess an email or some communication out to the farmers to at least get a sense of what demand is, if they're expecting 1 or 2 helpers, or if they're expecting 10, 20, sort of things. At least give us a ballpark number of what to maybe plan for.
Madam Mayor, before I go, there is some really big Facebook presence for people who are coming across the country. There's a group, I believe it's called Les BCs, something like this, and perhaps it would be worth finding out what exactly that Facebook group is and getting in touch with the administrators to find out what kind of conversations being had there and whether there's some indication of if people are coming, because it's extremely popular amongst the especially the Quebecois, but I imagine that others from Ontario and around also use that resource to talk about coming to BC in the summertime. So I don't know if that message got out to the province, if they know about it, but I would be I'd say that would be another valuable tool to use.
Yeah, I believe that Bryn is aware of that. Well, she mentioned that there's a number of Facebook pages related to this, so I know that she's aware. I have no idea, perhaps Anthony, you could speak more to this. I have no idea if she's actually joined that and is monitoring those sites. Yeah,
I'm not too sure. I will follow up with Bryn at 11 o'clock to see, but that's a great point, Councillor Carlson. I think if we need to find the right communication channels, I know it's a bit dispersed right now, but we'll use that as an option for sure.
Okay. Oh, Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, Anthony, if you need any help with your French for any of those posts, just let me know.
Good point, Councillor Holmes. Thank you. Any other questions on the domestic farm workers? Or anything that Anthony has provided in his operational update on COVID? All right, so let's go on to our second business items, 5.2, electronic meetings, public participation policy number 100.20. And I will turn this over to our corporate officer, Ms. Needham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the policy that was introduced at the meeting, electronic meetings public participation policy, was adopted by council on Monday, May the 25th. And we are testing the public participation process for this special meeting of council. Staff are planning to implement this enhanced public process at the regular meeting on June the 8th, 2020. And I would like to thank our participants this morning who are being connected in order of their registration to the speakers list. And starting with Marianne McDonald of 6505 McDonald Place.
Hi, I'm not sure everybody can hear me. I'm hoping they can. I'm glad to have been a participant in this.
Thank you for volunteering, Ms. McDonald. Much appreciated.
I don't need to say anything more, do I?
I did want to thank you for your comments yesterday on the introduction about registering for the speakers list and making it really clear to members of the public on the agenda that the speakers list is available for pre-registration and that the phone number is during the meeting. So that was very helpful, and Council, I may work on the wording there to make that a little more clear to members of the public, and certainly continue to adjust that message as necessary to ensure it's clear.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye-bye.
So the next person that was on our speakers list is actually Chris Johnson, our Director of Public Works. And he is, I believe, out and about on his cell phone. And our IT is just connecting him at this time. And I'll just ask Taylor if he has Chris.
While we're waiting for Chris to connect, I'm wondering if I could just ask a question about the policy, and I'm sorry I didn't notice this at our last meeting. It's in number 3. Oh, I see that it looks like he's there, so I'll ask it later.
Chris, are you there?
Good morning, Council.
Good. So Chris, did you just got the call from our moderator?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Was it fairly easy or?
Yeah, no issues whatsoever. Yeah, they advised me that I was going to be patched in, and it was patched in seamlessly.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you for that. And
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Good work, Chris.
And the final participant that actually called in during the meeting is our Director of Finance, Dave Sletnichny, who I believe is being patched in right now. And I can already tell there's a little bit of a delay in hanging up and getting the next person online, maybe something to work on. Okay. Yeah, we might have to have 2 phones going in order to avoid this delay. There we go. Dave, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. If you could turn down your computer.
I was being riveted by this. Hold on one second. It's muted.
Thanks. Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it. So can you just tell us how you got on the speakers list?
I just called in to the number that I was provided, and I did it after the council meeting started. So yeah, I called in, and Taylor told me that I was being put on the list, and that he'd call me back when it was my turn.
Great.
There is, just so you know, though, there's a really big lag as I'm watching this on the screen. There is probably a 30 to 45 second delay as to how everything's going. So I don't know if that's a big deal or anything, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it.
Enjoy your meeting, Council.
Okay, so that's all of our speakers for now. So certainly feel free to discuss the policy and just the test that we just had.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. I'll go to you in just a sec. I just want to finish off my question of a corporate officer. So I was referring to item 3, application. The policy applies to regular electronic meetings. Could we have special council meetings included in there, or is that not necessary? Because this is, we're testing it here, and presumably this will continue on. Please unmute.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, one of the reasons we did put regular meetings is certainly because of the advance notice that the public has with the publication of our agendas and the ability to register in advance. Our special meetings are often called with one-day notice, with the agenda posted very shortly. So the intent was, if there was a public item on the special agenda, as there was today, we would certainly want to maybe put that out in social media, but usually we don't have public participation during a special meeting.
That perfectly describes it. Thank you very much for the clarification. Councillor Holmes, over to you.
Thanks. So if people pre-register, they can participate through Zoom as well. Is that correct?
There is a possibility to do the Zoom. It would involve emailing them our meeting link. So we could do that with members of the public that are electronically savvy. We thought this was the best way to introduce the process, simply because members of the public would have to have the Zoom app downloaded, and there might be a little bit of a learning curve there. So if people were to request that, we can certainly include that as an option.
Okay, thank you.
As a follow-up to Councillor Holmes's question, is there potentially any security matters related to that?
The way that we would do that, Madam Mayor, the security issue is if the meeting invite gets circulated around to people other than the participants. So that was one of the considerations. We did discuss, however, sending the link close to the meeting time. So that would be one way to help mitigate that, but that certainly is a consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Council? All right. I think that the public participation with 3 different methods of getting into that went really well. Clearly, there is a lag, as we heard from Mr. Svetlichny, but well done, IT and corporate officer, and Anthony, I'm assuming. That's fantastic. If there's nothing else, I will ask for someone to bring forward adjournment of the meeting. Councillor Van Elfen, seconded by Councillor Barkwell. All in favor?
Just, I had something else.
Oh, please go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering if our CEO could tell us what he knows about this bear issue that's on Castanet this morning. I had calls this morning. I had my ear talked off. it is a big issue on a lot of people's minds that they don't like to see bears having to be put down. It says in the article that education doesn't seem to be working, but are you aware of what education they've been doing and whether we could step things up or something or what?
Yes, yeah, so through Chair, Madam Mayor, certainly an unfortunate incident up near the landfill. So we were managed to deal with the contractor yesterday as soon as we found out that the bins had some waste left in them. That area where the bins are stored is for bins that are there to be sent off to members of the community. There's no intention to store any waste in that area, so that has been dealt with and was cleaned up by the contractor yesterday afternoon. The education side of things, I'm not too sure in the past, and maybe council can speak to it, around dealing with the Bear Aware program that the regional district have, and what role the districts played in that process before. But there's certainly education components that have been in place in the past, and I think this issue and even some of the earlier issues that we saw in the last couple of months has raised the profile of, I guess, to increase the need for enhanced education throughout the community as well. So it's certainly something that we've got to look at increasing awareness within the community on.
Responding to that, I have a question first of all. Anthony, were you able to read the email that I forwarded this morning?
Not yet.
Okay.
I believe it's it's regarding the Bear Aware coordinator or the wildlife coordinator at the regional district. So we're going to be following up with Zoe and on that for sure.
Good. Councillor Holmes, can maybe you can verify this next statement I'm going to make, but I'm pretty sure that during our budget deliberations, we heard from Zoe Kirk in that, yes, Summerland was the next community for Bear Aware, and resources had been allocated as part of RDOS, but through the district for that Wildlife BC Bear Aware program. And we do have, and of course there's no access to it right now, but we do have pamphlets from WildSafe BC, including on Bear Aware and other wildlife in our stand as you come in the door. Councillor Holmes, are you able to verify if I have that right or not?
Yeah, I think a lot needs to be sorted out there. Certainly, I think we can learn from Naramata and what they've done there. Summerland does have the biggest bear problem now in the whole regional district area, and now that it used to be Naramata, but they've sort of sorted out with this Bear Aware program that they put in place. And I think it'd be worth having asking Zoe to attend a future meeting. I think we need to have a real discussion with this on council and figure out what do we do, what does the regional district do, and what they can provide us. And I know Zoe has some funding, but there is a money factor. There will be a money factor involved, especially if we start talking about having to change our garbage cans to be bear safe and that sort of thing. So there's the whole financial thing to consider. But I think we need to really have a discussion on council and get an understanding of what it means to become a smart community or Bear Aware community, and how much it's all going to cost us, and how, what are we prepared to, are we going to do this or not? Really, I think we have to make that decision.
I absolutely agree, Councillor Holmes. I'm wondering if you could verify whether or not I have it right in saying that this was part of our budget deliberations, and
yeah, if I remember correctly, so sorry, yeah, if I remember correctly, Zoe says that she does have some money, and but it's mainly to pay for her time. I think there would still need to be a budget discussion to be had with us and the RDOS and to figure out who's going to pay for what. And it obviously depends on how extensive the program is going to be.
Yes. Ideally, we'll become BearAware certified like the community of Naramata is. Councillor Barkwell, I think I saw your hand up. Thank you. And Councillor Trainer.
Yeah, I remember in one of the Councillor Holmes RDOS reports, he spoke of the impressive results that they've had in Naramata. But I also remember thinking, oh, well, I guess we don't have a problem here because I hadn't heard about it. And then people who have received tickets recently all felt that this was a big surprise to them. So it seems to me a lot more could be done that was quite simple, like to go around in the evening and put yellow warning stickers on people's garbage cans and say, you know, you'll be fined next time and things like that. One person spoke to me about doing that even on a volunteer basis to get out there and just make people aware. So whatever, I guess what surprises me is this person from the conservation officer's frustration that education doesn't seem to be working when I don't really know what sort of education for our area there has been. And certainly maybe the conservation officer could come and talk to us about the issue as well.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Councillor Trainer.
Anthony, would you be able to remind me, do we have any bylaws around putting out garbage in the morning? Is it?
Again, I'll have to look. I don't have it in front of me. I believe there is some time restriction on when garbage bins have to be put out. But again, I can confirm that and get that back to council. I don't know, Karen, if you're aware of that, but we'll have to have a look at our waste bylaw.
Councillor Barker was just saying something about people getting tickets. So is bylaw doing something right now?
So that was through the conservation office.
Okay.
Tickets are issued. So I'll have a look through our bylaws and definitely be able to update council. But I think the suggestion on obviously getting Zoe to come to council and the conservation officer as well potentially is a good discussion point for sure.
Okay, I just have two more questions. My second question is, Mayor Boot mentioned that there is bear literature, BearAware information at City Hall. Is that posted anywhere else? Like, do we put it in the newsletter as a reminder or on Facebook or on any of the community bulletin boards?
Yes, so in our draft newsletter for June, we've got that information in there. And I'll again have to find out where else we posted information, whether that's provided on. I know we have a number of community notice boards as well throughout the district. So I can certainly find out where else that information is distributed.
Okay, because if we have posters, I can put them up down in Trout Creek,
Okay.
Our community board. And then my final thing is, since living down here, I've been here for about 10 years, and in the summer in Trout Creek, we get, there's several vacation rental homes. And I noticed that a lot of times those homes, the people staying there put their garbage out the night before. This is just what I've observed. Whereas most of the residents down here are pretty good about putting it out in the morning. And so if we do some kind of education campaign, I definitely think we need to hit the vacation rentals, because those people come from other provinces where they might not have the same issues, and they're always putting out the garbage the night before, and that's a pretty big issue.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. So other than bed and breakfasts that have a business license, we'll have that contact information. Right now, vacation rentals aren't, I guess, authorized in the district. So that's certainly something we'll have to look at and investigate.
There is, responding to you, Councillor Trainer, there is information on wildsafebc.com. So the WildSafe BC website, they're the ones that Zoe goes through in order to put this program into a community. And I just wanted to say too that, again, with your example of people putting their waste out at times when it is providing an attractant to bears. Certainly we've had this discussion before. We've had it even fairly recently with Candace Pillings and Tammy Rothery about making sure that you're not putting your garbage out before 7 a.m. on the day of pickup. But that all goes to, as well as the education piece, all goes to the recognition that this is an example of something that, while local government plays a role, it really is a community effort. Just like maybe it can be compared a little bit to the pandemic. Government has a role to play, but it doesn't work unless there are people in the community that participate in making sure that they're doing their part. So just to say that, I look forward to having Zoe and perhaps a conservation officer attend a meeting too. I think that's a great suggestion, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Van Elfen and then Councillor Barkle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too would like to see if Zoe Kirk could come and address council, because I'd like to know what they've done in Naramata. It's a large agricultural community also with a lot of orchards and vineyards. It's not just the garbage that attracts the bears. You know, it won't be long now, the cherries will be abundant, and then when the apple crop is on, a lot of apples, the culls are thrown on the ground in the orchards, and there's a lot of varieties of apples today in orchards that aren't even being picked because there's no value anymore, and they're left on the trees in the fall. And again, it's another attractant to bears. So I don't know, I don't think it's just the garbage issue. As you know, summer proceeds, it's going to even get worse with the orchards. So I'd like to see what you know, what solutions they came up with in Naramata, you know, regarding that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Van Elfen. Councillor Barkle.
Yes, I would like to bring up something that I brought up the last time this issue came up, when, and that it would be relatively simple if the garbage pickup, say, started at 8 o'clock, because part of the problem is, and it was in one of the letters in the papers, that to get up at 6:30 to make sure your little bag of garbage is out there at 7 in the morning does not encourage cooperation. People find it a giant pain in the neck, and if we could adjust the schedule, then that problem would go away. And I think that would be a global solution rather than, and if we're going to consider ourselves a service organization, then we should look at that solution.
Anthony, could I have you speak to that? I think there are concerns with the scheduling. It's not just Summerland that is involved in the Summerland pickups. And then I'll go to Councillor Holmes.
Yes, so just a point earlier, our solid waste bylaw, our corporate officer advised me that we do have the requirement, says all curbside program material should be readily accessible for emptying or collection between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on the designated day of collection. So that's in the bylaw. So I just wanted to confirm that. But yes, we would have to have a discussion with our environmental services manager and the contractor around garbage collection times. And if there's the ability to move it, that certainly makes sense to later in the morning to avoid that. But it's obviously part of a larger program that I believe Waste Connections are involved in. So, but certainly worth investigation of options.
Great, thank you. Anything else before we vote on adjournment? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, just on that, I remember the discussion we had regarding that, and there was some issue with our own landfill in terms of them bringing it all together. I don't remember exactly what it was, but we had this conversation in the past. And one thing I like to add, I think with the new automated carts, the nice thing is it used to be you had no idea what time they were coming, and now they're pretty reliable that they come. I find that they come the same time, whatever that time is. every week. They're coming around the same time, so I think that's helpful. So just thought I'd throw that in there.
All right, are we ready to vote on adjournment then? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.